So, looter shooter. One of my audience members asked me and said, "Hey, I'd like your review of the game according to your knowledge of live service looter shooter games. Not a review in general, but just based on things that the division had done right." Now, many of you know that I've actually, talked about playing the division on this channel. And there's a review, by the way. It's by Miss Brave. So shout out to you. Thank you very much for the question. In fact, Godslave777, you've also been adding some really strong input as to why you believe that this game is going to have a very tough time from, presenting itself as a looter shooter. One of the reasons that this is a big question coming up is a lot of people are trying to visualize what the value of this game will be, when they spend $70. Now, I've not specifically talked about this in my past videos. In my past videos, I've been just working on, dispelling this notion that anyone's going to come here and think that they're going to be getting an Arkham style product from this game. You're not going to get that. At the most, you're going to get your full-blown story where you're going to walk through story beats, cutscenes, progression. You're going to do activities in the story that are indicative of what you're going to do at the end game. And then the story is going to come to some kind of, crescendo and then an end. Now, this is where I think they're going to basically go ahead and throw a big curveball. If they're able to nail the story down, it would literally help cover for a lot of the shortcomings of the game, because I already see some. I don't want to say anything just yet, but keep in mind, I will provide my own opinions and thoughts on this. And so when you also kind of take this into account, you realize that, okay, when I get that story, what else am I going to be doing with this game? And there's a value proposition for most video games that once you beat these single player superhero games, there's an expectation that's set that you probably have something else that you need to keep doing as time goes on. The big reason Marvel Spider-Man 2 struggled in this category is specifically because it did not have anything after you had beaten the game. Even Spider-Man 2018 didn't really have much to offer. But compared to a game like Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, and Arkham Knight, you had a lot of different maps at the end, combat maps, Predator maps. In the case of Arkham Knight, you had racing maps. So there was a lot of content still left over, even though it was a single player proposition. You beat the story, the world changed, or whatever it is that, was going on. You still had that. Then, even within the single player paradigm, you had the Riddler that kept you going if you wanted to go ahead and 100% the game. When you look at the live service offerings, that's not how it works. In fact, the live service offering pretty much gives you this loop where you have to continue to get the best of everything. Best gear, best weapons, best, setup, best builds. And so that's one of the gameplay loops. Another thing that Suicide Squad wants to do is bring new characters to the forefront, which I'm certain they're going to allow for you to start playing end game objectives where, something happens, a new threat arises, something breaks over here, you got to go get it fixed. These are the things that the end game is supposedly going to consist of. So that being said, let's look at the Division 1. Let's look at a few things that it did right and a few things that it did wrong. In fact, the game had a huge deficit when it came to bringing content for its community. Division 2, on the other hand, was one that a lot had been learned from. So I would do a little juxtaposition of both of them in that regard. So when the Division 1 first released, we got everything, I think about 10, 12 to 16 missions or so where you could actually do them over and over again. It gave you a progression. And then all of these missions had a boss, and each boss had a specific set of things that could actually, be rewarded to you if you took them out. So you could take out the same boss in the same mission over and over again. We did that to get special gear, special weapons, and special items. And then there was a, in quote, short form raid, which was called an incursion. It was just you going into a bunker and taking, all kinds of fire damage and barrage with waves of enemies coming at you. About, I think it was 15 waves altogether. They all played differently. Your team had to adapt. You had to have all of what it took. Then you had to go basically and plant a bomb on this big APC. It was just a very interesting mission structure. I enjoyed it. It was my favorite incursion ever. In fact, it was such a very strong portion of my gameplay that I advocated over and over in the Division 2 that we needed incursion. I made multiple videos to this effect. I think other people eventually started joining in. And, thankfully, we got an incursion in the Division 2. It's a whole different conversation. That incursion sucks. It's very hard. It's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's really, really hard. Developers made it so tough. I finally got to beat it a few times, and I got the special weapon that it grants, so I don't play it anymore because I'm very time constrained. Now, this endgame loop and endgame cycle is something that I'm not necessarily seeing in the Suicide Squad game, where there's a specific mission that's supposed to go in there and grant you something. Now, it could be that their horde mode also allows for these mechanics as well, because you can do a horde mode in a way where it's unique and it stands out. And I don't know yet, none of us know if they're going to be adding any special weapons or special granted items that this particular mission will give you. And so this is what I think the end game might be lacking in terms of communication. And maybe if they've communicated anything and I've missed it, then that's what it is. I missed it. But very soon they're going to be doing their end game conversation. They're going to be opening up, some more talks in that department. And so you're going to go ahead and be able to find out. Now, this is very wonderful in the conversational sense, because I think a lot of people have simmered down. A lot of the expectations of, oh, no, the game is not like Arkham. Oh, no, the game doesn't do this. Or no, talking about Gotham Knights and so on and so forth has now basically shifted, because that's exactly what we needed to be able to have clear-cut conversations surrounding Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. So when we look at it from a money value perspective, value proposition as to what it is you're going to be spending your money on, the question now is the single player and the horde mode possibly your very best bet? Is the gameplay loop able to give you depth and give you a lot of value when you eventually continue to engage in it? That question would actually be brought back down to the gear game. And the gear game is something that the Division does way better than any live service game I have ever played. Now, there are other live service games that do it probably better, but they're in a different category. The Division is in the shooter category, so it kind of holds that position as an RPG looter shooter. Suicide Squad is not an RPG, so that doesn't seem to be where that gear game is going to be too convincing for me, having come from a place where every single gear item that I put on mattered. In the Division, all 6 of your gear items, you had a backpack, you had a chest piece, which was basically like your bulletproof vest, you had gloves, you had mask, knee pads, and you had one more thing. And you had 6, and your holster. Yes, all of these different things carry different stats that would help you do some really cool stuff. If you notice, as I'm shooting these guys, I'm going to heal automatically. Why is that going to happen? If you notice, I'm gonna, once I take everybody out here, you can see a little tiger on the bottom corner of the screen. That little tiger head, and you see me beaming green as I'm shooting and taking anybody out. It's my gear pieces that I put together. When I take bad guys out, I actually heal. These are the things and these are the elements that Suicide Squad may be able to go ahead and implement, but they're going to need to be diverse enough to make me go out there and say, I want to build this direction with Harley Quinn. I want to make her, like a tank or whatever it is, so that she can still be independently strong in this way, so that I can play this kind of play style. These kinds of little things put in a video game, perspective is definitely something that can make the end game fun if it's there, and if they have missions and they have rewards and they have things that I can go with. And so the developers can implement these things over time. None of this was kind of just born in a day with the Division, by the way. I'm also using a gear set where if I shoot an enemy 10 times, they start bleeding. So if you look very close, I'm going to hit this guy with a few bullets. You see a double tiger on his head. He's already taking damage. And his health is going to basically be much lowered once I hit him. I'm going to hit this guy a little bit and I walk away and there he is. He's dead. That guy bled to death. So I'm using a unique set of, possibilities when I'm building. And this is one out of over 14 to 15 main play styles with other sub play styles that you could use in the Division 1. That's not even talking about Division 2, where the play styles are insane and your weapons also have different damage parameters. Your gear and combinations have different damage parameters, and it's wild. And so when you think about it, what are players' objectives going to be and what a player rewards going to be? These are the things that are going to really speak very, very heavily to endgame. With the raids in the Division, there were very rare weapons that you could only get in the raid. Only way you could get them was to go ahead and pretty much destroy this particular mission, take out a bunch of bad guys, and open a chest. If you notice, you can see my buddy over here, Redline. He's opening a chest to try to get a specific weapon. I got a key. You get a key after the raid mission, after you take out the bad guys. You do the mission, you follow, specific patterns, and then you take out the raid boss. Then you have the opportunity to pretty much go back and, go ahead and open up a box and try to get the weapon. So these activities, there are 2 raids in the division. They do grant you, something really cool. The first incursion that they eventually put has a specific weapon to it. So when you think about these layers and you think about these content pieces, well thought out, well crafted, supported by the developers, you got to ask yourself and say, okay, if Suicide Squad doesn't have all this, am I in a position where I'm willing to wait? Am I in a position where I'm willing to just continue playing the end game? Or is there even enough to keep me playing? And this is how you evaluate a live service shooter, in my opinion. Not saying it needs to have all those, all the depth that I've actually shown in the other games, but at least it needs to have some gameplay loop, some reward structure, and something of a activity-based cycle that players can go back and redo. Now, you're going to see people talk about, that just seems monotonous. This is just basically doing the same exact thing. Yes, that's usually how these games go. You're not going to put yourself in a position where all of the stuff you're going to be doing in a live service game is just going to be uber super unique every single given time. What really is the reality of it is, as you're playing through the game, there are aspects of the game that make things deeper than just the activities that you're doing. And so more is yet to be seen in this particular category, how the developers are going to go with it. I'm just here to see how they evolve through. I'm here to see how they, follow through this journey. And some of you that have said, you're going to wait for a sale, this might be your own, focus, and this might be your own reasons to be able to think, okay, how am I going to spend my $70? I saw somebody say, I'd rather spend my $70 on Tekken. They were, and I said, yeah, that's fine. I thought about, basically playing Tekken 8 as well too. But, I got to think about, okay, what am I going to be even doing? Because if I'm playing Suicide Squad and I'm actually trying to spec my gear and get my player character, powerful and strong, I'm more than likely not going to want to play Tekken. And I'm also limited on time, running a YouTube channel, having a regular full-time job, and so on and so forth. So for this question, and the answer right now is, these are the things you need to pay very close attention to. That's pretty much my video. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Don't forget to hit up the Discord, link in the description below. Peace out.